Afternoon, everybody. Thank you for tuning in to Knollwood. We're going to be starting our program in just a couple minutes. Today's topic is learning about the differences between independent living and assisted living.
Yeah.
Lot of meat today on
Yes.
today's session. So we're just going to give people are still kind of arriving and checking into the webinar. So we'll start in about one more minute.
Yep.
Grab your coffee.
Next time.
I think everybody's here. What do you think? Okay.
It's okay to get started.
Alrighty, so we'll get started now. So welcome, everybody. This is Helen Cahill, and I'm Caroline McCormick. I think a few of you may already know us, but for those of you who don't know us or are new to our webinar series, welcome. This is Inside Out, and we do this once or twice a month. Once in a while, we have a special edition, but like earlier this month, we did have a special show.
Yeah.
About the foundation for Knollwood.
Mm-hmm.
And today's topic is assisted living versus independent living. What we were going to do is we will take questions as well. So if there's a question you have that pertains to the particular topic that we're talking at the moment, then you can key it in either to the chat box or the Q&A area. Or at the end, we'll also have time for questions as well. So we hope to get to as many questions as possible. Today's program is a little longer than some of our other programs, so we apologize if we can't get to all the questions, but thank you for joining in. Helen's been at Knollwood for how many years now?
Oh my gosh. I came to Knollwood at the end of 2014.
Okay, so you've been here about 7 years. That's excellent.
Long time.
Yeah. So Helen knows all the ins and outs of Knollwood, right? So you might as well talk a little bit about
Yes.
what we have here.
Yes. Especially for the new people who are joining us today, we always love to start off the webinar with a little overview of Knollwood. We are a nonprofit, and we're really lucky. We're on 16 acres in the district, which is like almost unheard of. And we're right across the street from Rock Creek Park. So it is such a beautiful setting. We are a life plan community. We have multiple levels of care. So we've got independent living, assisted living, as well as skilled nursing. And our largest neighborhood is independent living. The majority of the residents who live here are independent and they live in an apartment home.
Yeah. So these are the goals that we hope you'll take away today. There are some significant differences between assisted living and independent living. And the reason that these are important to highlight is because many people mistakenly think I'll go live at Knollwood or whatever community when I need it.
Yeah.
And need is a word that doesn't really coincide with independent living.
Yeah.
So if somebody really has needs, other than the need for like peace of mind or dotting their I's and crossing their T's, then that was probably an assisted living when the word need comes into play. You're also going to find that when you look at communities, especially if you're looking at care, so assisted living or nursing care, there are going to be a lot of acronyms and terms that can mislead. Even independent living has some misleading terms often used within communities similar to Knollwood. There are different criteria for whether one is eligible for independent living or not. And then we do talk a little bit about payment options because they're different slightly for independent and assisted living. So we hope that you'll understand all of that as well.
Okay.
We like to give
Yes,
tests.
we've got some test scenarios and we love to do these. So this one, I'm just gonna read through quickly, and We're going to have another one after this. We will not answer them until a little bit later. So we just want you to ponder on these as we move through the presentation. So we've got Jane and John. They live in a community that offers socializing, educational programs, housekeeping, and dining. They both need reminders to take medicine. Jane gets around easily, and John, he's a little bit more slow. Jane no longer cleans or cooks, but their apartment has a kitchenette. And Jane has help showering. John has a stable but chronic illness. So we want you to just think a little bit about what type of community, what level of care.
Care or no care, independent living
Yep.
or care of assisted living.
Mhm.
Okay, so now we're going to go to the next test. Okay. And so now this test is about Julie. And Julie also lives in a community where there's, a lot of fun things to do. There's socializing, educational programs, housekeeping services, dining options. She doesn't drive at night anymore, but she gets around pretty easily. She doesn't cook as much as she used to. She doesn't like to clean. She has diabetes and sometimes cheats on her diet. So later on, if you can't figure this out now, we'll relay the answer, but it's going to be a little while. So we're going to come back to Julie and John and his wife in a little bit. But for now, we're moving on.
So types of communities, we like to give a little bit of background on a life plan community because some people just may not know what a life plan community is. So as I mentioned earlier, Knollwood is a life plan community, and there are two specific elements that make you a life plan community. You have to have independent living and skilled nursing. Now, here at Knollwood, we have assisted living as well. And those are all on one campus. There are also freestanding independent communities, freestanding assisted living communities, and combination assisted and independent.
Yep. Yeah, and Knollwood does have memory care too.
Yes.
And the memory care at Knollwood, though, is at the skilled nursing level.
Mm-hmm.
Typically, when you see a freestanding community without, it usually offers memory care at the assisted living level. Now we have some lingo here. So Helen has already talked about life plan community, but you may hear the terms type A, type B, or type C. Type A is also sometimes referred to as life care. Type B is sometimes referred to as modified life care, and type C is typically called fee for service. What's important to know is they all have independent living, no care, and they all have skilled nursing, a lot of care, and most have some care, something in between. So a continuum is usually a community that offers sometimes no care like independent living, but always some levels of care. And independent activities of daily living is another term that you're going to hear. And this is typically more common functions for people who are independent. So independent, or excuse me, instrumental activities of daily living, really shouldn't say independent, it should say instrumental there, that's my mistake. But we're going to move on to our next slide, and we're going to describe a little bit more, go into a little bit deeper, the instrumental activities of daily living. These are things that when we're independent, we kind of take for granted. Like I pay my bills, most are done online. I can write checks, I can balance my checkbook if I take the time to sit down and do it. I manage my money. Sometimes I shop too much, but I'm perfectly capable of grocery shopping, whether it's online or in person. I'm perfectly capable of cooking. I prefer to eat out, but in COVID, you don't do that. Taking medications, I do it the right way. I know how to use a cell phone and a telephone and communication devices, and I manage to keep my house clean and all that. Those are instrumental activities of daily living. And everybody who would be coming to live at Knollwood in independent living is going to be capable of all these.
Yes.
Now, but housekeeping, though, you may be capable of it, but maybe you don't want to housekeep, right?
Yes, maybe you don't like to clean all the time. And that's one of the nice things that we offer here, weekly housekeeping included.
Right. But being able to do instrumental activities of daily living without any second thoughts
Yeah,
are indicative that someone is independent.
yeah.
But now you can talk about these.
So this activities of daily living, that is a phrase you may have heard before, and that's going to include all of those bullet points, things like bathing, grooming, dressing, you know,
Getting around.
getting around. Yeah, transferring is sometimes how people that's a term they use. Going to the bathroom on your own. So people who are moving into independent living, they don't need help with these things. They can do all of these things. They can take a bath or a shower on their own. They can shave or brush their teeth on their own. You can eat by yourself. So we'd really like to kind of differentiate between the two, because as we move forward with the presentation, you'll see we dig into activities of daily living and when those come into play as far as levels of care.
Often when somebody does need a level of care, assisted living is sometimes the starter level. And assisted living, you're going to be getting help with some of these.
Yes.
Now, keep in mind though, on assisted living, if you didn't help with all of these, you're actually not an assisted living candidate anymore. You're a candidate for nursing care.
And join us on our next webinar to hear more about that, because that's what we're going to be getting into.
Yes. Okay.
All right. So we've mentioned before, and this is something that Carol Ann, she's a stickler for. There are so many acronyms out there across the board at, whether it's medicine, communities like this, government, all kinds of things.
Engineering and
Yes,
science.
yes. I mean, there's all kinds of acronyms, and we try to get away from that just so everybody feels like they're on the same page, they understand what we're talking about. And we find it important to break down. So we're going to go through a couple slides where we break them down for you all. But here, you may have heard of IL, independent living, AL, assisted living, SNF, we hear that a lot.
Ugh.
That's skilled nursing.
Bless you.
Yes. Instrumental activities of daily living, activities of daily living, and of course, CMS Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services.
And therapies don't typically relate to anybody living in assisted living. Usually if somebody, unless it's some sort of outpatient therapy, but we just thought it would be helpful to list some of the common therapy acronyms. They're often pertinent for somebody who might be having a rehab stay, either inpatient or outpatient. And perhaps, if you've ever had a knee replacement or shoulder surgery, you yourself might have had to have some therapies. There are more therapies than these, because there is music therapy, there's intravenous therapy, there's
massage therapy.
Yeah, that's a good one. So, but anyway, we just wanted to list some of the common therapies that you might hear. And those are kind of ones.
Yeah.
And now we have some acronyms related to nursing. And because assisted living does employ nurses, even though it's not a nursing level of care, nurses are employed at an assisted living center. Now, an assisted living center does not have a nursing home administrator, but they might have a director of nursing, but they certainly do have a nurse that is in some way in charge and or a director of the assisted living services. You'll often find registered nurses working in assisted living, maybe not around the clock. And here at Knollwood, we do have registered nurses for assisted living, as well as licensed practical nurses. In some states, and not in our area, but California, I think, is one. Some states, instead of a licensed practical nurse, they have a licensed vocational nurse, but they're doing the same services. They cannot do quite as much as a registered nurse. But here in the district, a licensed practical nurse can help with medications, and that's important for some assisted living residents.
Yes, absolutely. And one that's not on here, but we probably should add for next time, CNAs. So
Certified nursing assistant.
exactly. So as Caroline mentioned, a licensed practical nurse, they can help with medication management. So if you need someone to come and give you your medication, although that at least here is included as part of your monthly service charge, you will have to have someone at that higher level versus just a regular certified nursing assistant.
Correct.
So it's important to make that differentiation.
And it's important actually. I think I should share with people now. When you think about assisted living, if you're people, you might also be familiar with home care. The
Yeah.
services that home care provides are the same services that assisted living provides.
Yeah.
The difference is you're in your house, so you're going to be isolated, perhaps. So maybe less things going on, less interaction with others. And when you're living in a community with assisted living services, there's multiple staff. So if somebody is sick or can't come to work, they're going to have someone to replace it, or that can sometimes be harder to do if you just have one person coming to your house.
Yeah.
But the services are really identical with home care services for assisted living. Okay, very good. Thanks for making me think of that. There you go.
All right. So,
Oh, look, there's a typo.
we can't always get it right. We try. So the certified nursing assistant that I mentioned before, and the certified medicine aid. So again, this is a term that you don't hear as much in this area, but
in Maryland, they do have certified medicine aids in Maryland.
Yes.
So some of people listening may be,
Mm-hmm.
and that's kind of a step above a certified nursing assistant. They're able to help to some degree with medicine, where certified nursing assistants cannot. Yes. And also for people who are the companion, is that where you're going?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Companions, it's important to note that companions are not supposed to be doing any hands-on stuff. So their companions are not certified to do things like wash your hair, because that involves touching you. They're not certified to do things like help you with the shower. But they can do things like run errands, cook, or clean. So if you're going to get help in your house, then you need to think about, is it a companion or a certified nursing assistant that you would need?
Yeah.
And a certified medicine aid also has to work under the auspices of a registered nurse.
Makes sense. So need some oversight there.
Yes.
Social work. So Master of Social Work, licensed clinical social worker. So when would you hear these terms, Caroline?
Usually at the nursing level, or maybe if you're in the hospital having a rehab stay, a social worker may help you find a rehab center to have your rehab. If you lived at Knollwood, you'd know you were going to rehab here. So that social worker won't have to necessarily help you find a place, but might end up sending your hospital records to Knollwood, so we know what to do when you come back for rehab.
Yeah.
If you don't live at Knollwood, and let's say you did have, let's say you had a hip replacement, and you could call us to see if we had space in rehab for you. Sometimes if we have an opening that a resident doesn't need, there's that need word, then we may be able to have somebody who doesn't live here come for a short stint for rehab.
Yeah.
And then a licensed clinical social worker is a step above, has the same education as a master of social work. However, they've gone through some licensure within the jurisdiction where they work. So they have a little more of a regulatory background.
Makes sense. Not just the educational aspect. Sure. Okay, we're going to dig into comparing independent versus assisted, and really what you might see around a community. These are some visual cues, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if you're in an apartment home, if there's a kitchenette, there's no stove, that's a clue. That is a clue that even if they call it independent, that's not really independent. So independent living, you're going to have a regular kitchen. It's gonna have your dishwasher, your stove, you know, maybe there's a microwave, fridge.
Things that you have right now in your house.
Exactly.
Or condo.
There's gonna be options for dining. There, you know, residents, not everybody still has their car, but you know, you're gonna see cars. The parking lot's gonna be full. There's gonna be a variety of floor plans. Like here, there's so many, it blows our minds. It's
It
just,
does.
it's a lot, but it's great options. You know, people love options. And there isn't that need for licensure for care
Because we don't.
because you're not getting
independent
care,
living, you don't- yeah, right.
right? So assisted living, you got that kitchenette. All of your meals are going to be included.
They have to be by regulation.
Yep. Resident cars, next to none. Hopefully not too many.
Yes.
Definitely fewer floor plan choices. And if the total amount of apartments is equivalent to the amount of apartments licensed for assisted living, can we dig into that a little bit?
Sure. Yeah. So if you're uncertain of the place that you're looking at, you know, are they really an independent living place, or are they assisted living trying to attract independent living people? Because that does happen.
Tricky.
So what you want to do is just ask them, well, how many apartments do you have? Okay, wait till they answer, and let's say they say 110. Then say, how many are licensed for assisted living? Okay. And they say 110. Well, then it's not truly an independent living center. Sure, could you live in an assisted living if you were independent? Sure, but
Yeah.
would you want to? That's up to you, but you might not.
Yeah. There are going to be around the clock aides, nurses, and social workers potentially in that assisted living. But
Well, this,
again, social workers you're more likely going to see in a
Nurses.
skilled nursing setting.
Yeah. But you will definitely see nurses, and always aides around the clock. Most places, nurses around the clock. It didn't always used to be that way. It's becoming more popular. I mean, in Washington, D.C., it's actually a regulation to have a nurse around the clock in assisted living. It might be a licensed practical nurse. It could be a registered nurse. But not every state has the same parameters and regulations for assisted living. It's different state by state. That's a good way to visually know the difference.
Yes, if you're touring, you know, and these are great clues. Absolutely. Okay.
So living in independent living. So we were talking about care, and we're talking about assisted living and needing help with activities of daily living, and probably not being able to do the instrumental activities of daily living. Maybe you can do some, maybe not all.
Yeah.
However, you still have to be able to live safely in an apartment on an ongoing basis. Meaning, okay, what if, you know, your toilet was overflowing? You know, would you know to get out of the bathroom? Would you know to phone someone for help, or poke your head out into the corridor and ask for help? You know, so could you do some safe things? Even though there's people there along all the time, they're not going to be with you all the time.
Yeah.
Can you get around the assisted living neighborhood on your own? Can you kind of get in and out of chairs and beds and, you know, on your own? Can you eat without help? Not cook, but eat. You know, if you're someone that needs your food cut up and needs to be fed or needs it pureed, that is nursing care.
Yes.
Sometimes people do have some continence trouble and live in assisted living.
Yeah.
But if they do, maybe it's not continual or on, you know, or regular, or maybe it's regular, but they're still able to somewhat participate in managing it. If someone needs help all the time with continence, that's probably a sign that skilled nursing is better. And in assisted living, you're going to usually have help with medicine, but you're going to be like cooperative in that help. Maybe someone just has to come and tell you it's time, and then they watch you take it, or maybe they have to actually sort of help you take it, but you're not going to like say no or fight back or spit it out or give it to your dog.
Yeah.
And you'll be able to do some of your activities of daily living on your own. Maybe you can't do all of them, But if you couldn't do any of your activities of daily living, then you're actually beyond the needs of assisted living.
Yes. Yeah.
Now, sometimes too, so what can make someone ineligible for assisted living? That's important. Well, one, we just said needing help with all of your activities of daily living. Sometimes people have medical needs, and assisted living isn't really for medical needs. It's really for supportive needs for daily activities. So let's just say somebody was a brittle diabetic. Um, Somebody needed, you know, constant help getting in and out of bed, things like that, so that they wouldn't, somebody needed help so they wouldn't get what's called a bed sore or a wound. Um, sometimes if somebody is having a more severe illness that's progressive, like Parkinson's or even dementia or Lou Gehrig's disease, different illnesses where a lot of medical comes into play, then at some point, assisted living may not work for them. The other thing too is lack of personal funds. So in the United States, Medicaid is not an option for assisted living, so you're going to be paying with your personal funds.
Yeah.
So if somebody doesn't have they're lacking on personal funds, or if their personal funding is running out, then that could make somebody ineligible for assisted living. I don't think we have any questions yet, do we? No. Well, if somebody has a question, be sure to key it in. And another thing to point out before Helen talks about this, but to point out is that you may want to listen to this again or see it again or ask questions after today. You could call Helen or I.
Yeah.
You could look on our website in another couple of days. This is being recorded. And so if you go to knollwoodcommunity.org, you'll see that today's session has been recorded. So you could kind of rewatch it or even fast forward to a part you want to hear again.
Yeah.
Or fast forward a part of it you don't want to hear again.
Yeah.
You
don't have to watch all the way through.
Right. Yes.
Yes. So talking, again, we're going through the differences between assisted and independent. So when we're looking at eligibility for independent living, you are able to run your household safely and wisely. If someone is in their home and they're writing checks to scammers calling and spending their money like crazy, that's not really independent. You are on top of your bills. You're making sure if something breaks down, you're calling somebody to take care of it or whatever.
Maybe you fix it yourself.
Yeah.
You're a handyman, but you don't let it go.
Exactly. You aren't having care come in and you aren't cognitively impaired, and here at Knollwood, our eligibility, we want people to come into independent living with the expectation that they'll be in their independent living apartment home 5 or more years.
And most people actually, that number is like what, 15 or more years for most people.
Yes.
Most people are coming in when they're in their 70s. Some people do come in their 60s.
Yeah.
But there's no cap on when you can come in, but there could be a cap on if your health changes.
Yeah, absolutely. And your personal funds, Knollwood does not have a rental option, but having your personal funds being able to last your life expectancy, that's what we're going to be looking at.
And we know nobody can guarantee that their funds will last their life expectancy, but Knollwood does review that. And if it looks like in all likelihood, bar some unusual circumstance, then that is your financial eligibility.
Yeah.
And the reason that Knollwood has that financial bar, so to speak, we do measure that, is because if you did outlive your funds living at Knollwood, we would not ask you to leave.
Right.
So we do look at your funds before you're coming here, just for the, if the odds are really good that you're going to outlive your funds, then it's not a good fit for Knollwood because we can't afford to take care of everybody or help everybody financially. But we do have that. And kind of one thing as we're talking about independent living, Sometimes a couple may come here to live and a spouse may be having a little bit of trouble. So that doesn't mean the couple could not live in independent living, but the spouse who's having a little bit of trouble needs a spouse, or it could be a partner or a roommate. But the other person has to be really, really strong on all counts.
Yes.
But don't let you think that because your husband is starting to have a little bit of trouble, or because your life partner is having a little trouble, that would rule you out. As long as one of you is very, very strong, it's good to inquire.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And it looks like we do have a question that popped in.
Yeah.
So is a question related to the slide we were on? Oh, very good.
Oh,
What was the
perfect.
question? Alici's in the background helping us out.
What happens if one partner has to move to?
Okay, what happened? Well, we didn't quite cover that.
Yeah.
Right? So that's a good question. What happens if one partner has to move to assisted living? Well, here's one thing. Typically with couples, assisted living is usually almost always, not always, but most of the time off the books. Because if you notice in assisted living, there's help with medicine or dressing or bathing, or you don't have to worry about any cooking or shopping for food. But for independent living, your spouse or your partner may be doing those things for you. If your spouse became unable to, if your partner became unable to support you that way, then you would still both live at the community, but one person may live in assisted living and one may not. Or you could also have the option of bringing someone into your apartment to help you, an aide, a companion. So there's quite a few options for couples. And just think about it too, though, if you are a couple and one of you is having trouble, and let's say out of the blue, the healthy person just, something terrible happens, passes away, heart attack, car accident, then you know that the person who's having trouble is already in a safe place.
Yeah.
And Knollwood would be able to offer your spouse who's still remaining assisted living or nursing care because you're no longer able to help out. So, that's a good thing.
Absolutely.
That was a great question.
Yeah. Gives you that peace of mind.
Yeah. Well, why don't you
Yeah.
talk about the regulations?
Woohoo, regulations. So in independent living, less regulation. Caroline mentioned, you will see things differ state by state. And there is no licensure for care in independent living because you're not getting care in independent living. Now for assisted living, there is regulations, just like there would be for skilled nursing. Again, state level, licensed to provide supervision, personal care services. So, getting back to those activities of daily living and assistance with those, there's going to be a registered nurse available and, licensed practical nurses, the LPNs, as we mentioned before, they can administer medications. Some services may be offered that aren't required.
Correct. And this can happen, in either independent living or assisted living. So independent living, they have to offer dining. Okay.
Yes.
But maybe they don't have to offer room service unless you're sick or something like that. So you're often going to find out some services could be offered, but they're not necessarily required. In some states, you don't have to have a registered nurse for assisted living, and some you do. So that's kind of where all that stands.
Yeah. All that fun stuff.
Is there another question under the Q&A or the chat? There might be. Okay. All right. Then we're going to move on.
Getting back to the test. All right. So
Julie's my person.
That's your person. So
All
I'll
right.
let you take that one.
Okay, I'm
I'll
going to
do
do
the
Julie. So we're going to move on to go back to where does Julie live? We'll see if any of you guessed this right, but let's put up Julie's story again first, just to remind you. So, all right, she doesn't drive. That's not a big deal. Or
No.
She still drives in the daytime, but not at night. She doesn't clean. Well, it's probably because she has a housekeeper.
Yeah.
And maybe she cooks less, maybe because she's single and would rather eat with other people, or maybe she loves all the restaurants in DC. Maybe she is an Uber Eats fan.
Yeah.
Maybe she gets carryouts from the bistro at Knollwood or dines in the dining room. And she has diabetes, no big deal. She cheats, that's on her.
Yeah. Yeah.
So Julie lives in independent living.
Yeah.
Hopefully she stops cheating on her diet because that could lead to assisted living. for
Yes.
Julie.
Fingers crossed. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Mhm.
That is the right answer to our friend who just typed that in. You are correct.
Yep.
Independent living.
Mhm.
So my people, John and Jane. So we're not going to advance quite yet because there's all the answers. But you know, some of the things that we talked about, well, John moves a little bit slower. There were some key words in there. And so as we
Kitchenette was in there.
yes, kitchenette. Remember, we talked about that. So as we move on to the next slide, you're going to see those words highlighted. So reminding to take medication. If you are independent, you shouldn't be getting medication reminders. Yes, exactly. Assisted living. The kitchenette, that was a dead giveaway, at least for us anyways. If we're getting help showering, that's an activity of daily living. Stable chronic illness. So, you know, something's going on where you need some help, some medication, perhaps, whatever it may be. But you know, in the future,
But it's stable. Maybe
Yeah.
you have chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, but it's stable.
yeah,
So if you have an illness that is not stable and it's acute versus chronic.
mhm,
So in other words, good days, bad days, or maybe just days are getting worse.
yeah,
Any illness that is not chronic but acute or is unstable automatically means that assisted living communities cannot help you. If you are willing and able financially to hire a private duty nurse, not an aide, but a nurse 24/7, then you may be able to stay in an assisted living setting, avoiding skilled nursing, but basically you're going to be paying more than you would pay in just skilled nursing
Yeah.
alone, actually, to do that. But you could also, of course, do that in your house, but it's going to cost you a very, very pretty penny.
yeah, big
Um,
bucks.
So yeah, so that's our answer there.
Yeah,
There's some other questions I'm asking just as
okay.
And I guess we're going to have a couple more questions coming in. And so we have these lists show a couple of, well, there's 4 properties on the left. And then I know people watching could be in Maryland, Virginia, DC, could
Yeah.
be further away. You know, somebody could be watching in Maine, I don't know. But these communities that we list on the left-hand side are all in either Maryland, Virginia, or DC. They all offer independent living, and they actually all happen to be life plan communities. The listing on the right has nothing to do with the left-hand listing. It doesn't correspond in any way, but they're all freestanding assisted living communities. So they do not offer independent living. They may try to attract independent living people,
Yes.
and they do not offer skilled nursing. So they are truly assisted living, and they're also rentals. So when you're a renter, you do not have the rights of a life lease as you would at a life plan community.
Yeah.
So that's a big difference as well.
True or
And
false?
so now here, what we're going to look at are, some questions.
Yep, we love to quiz you.
Mhm.
So, Medicaid covers assisted living costs. True or false? Ooh, what do you think? Let's see on the next slide.
We know the answer.
So, as Caroline mentioned before, it is mostly false. Actually, there are 2 assisted living properties in DC that have Medicaid waivers, but for the most part, Medicaid is going to come into play when you're in skilled nursing.
Right. And this is true across the United States.
Yep.
So it's not unique to Washington, DC. There are very, very, very few assisted living centers that accept Medicaid as payment. And up here, you'll see that we have the Medicaid thresholds from 2020. I should have looked to see what they are for 2021. And actually, they probably won't change until July. The Medicaid fiscal year is June 30th to June 30th. But those thresholds possibly will go up a little bit. And that means somebody is eligible to receive Medicaid. And these are probably Washington, D.C. numbers for 2020 if your monthly income is below 2349. There are other thresholds as well, but if you don't meet this one, it doesn't matter to look at the other ones.
Medicare. Medicare covers assisted living costs. True or false? Okay, let's see. Yeah, false. So Medicare is, yep, that's correct. I love this active participation we've got going today. So Medicare is going to cover short-term stays, rehab stays, as Kelly mentioned. Maybe you have a knee replacement or, shoulder. You are going to be going into a skilled nursing setting for a short period to get some kind of therapy, rehab, and you know that your condition is going to improve. And so you would be there for a short-term rehab stay that is covered by Medicare. It's, yeah.
And I think we may have a question. I'm going to come really close to the screen, but I think we may have a question that's not showing up. So I just want to
That's all right.
and see. Okay, so there's a question about long-term care insurance, and there's a question about VA benefits.
Oh, boy.
Okay, all right, so we'll take them both separately. If somebody has veterans benefits, there are different ways they can use them, and they're going to vary by person. Okay, so veterans benefits will often cover components of home care. It may provide a stipend that you could use toward assisted living, or it may cover nursing care. But veteran benefits are not uniform across the board. Okay. So it could put extra money in your pocket. For some people, they're very good. Veterans Association has called what's called aid in attendance, and that is, there's income qualifications for that or income limitations for that, and it is for either the veteran themselves or their spouse, and it's different amounts depending on if you're the veteran or the spouse. And they will provide you, it's kind of like a stipend to help with care each month. So depending on what type of benefit you're looking for, you really, it's good to either talk with a social worker or someone from Veteran Administration, because there are quite a few different things that can help out there. Yeah. Now, someone else had a question about long-term care insurance. Yes, very familiar with it. I will say that every long-term care policy is different. So just like my auto policy coverage might be different than Helen's, your long-term care coverage might be different than mine, because I too have a policy. Knollwood does do long-term care insurance workshops as a community service, and I believe those start up in May at Knollwood. So you may want to circle back with us about joining a workshop. You have to have a policy, and your policy has to come with you to the workshop, or otherwise it's useless. But every long-term care policy is different. What I will tell you is you might have home care coverage. You probably have assisted living coverage, and they all have nursing coverage. And there are other things they might cover as well. All long-term care insurance policy, though, is a reimbursement to you. So you would pay your bill to whatever licensed organization is providing your services. So in other words, you can't get somebody's friend from church to help you out, or, the rabbi's wife, because they're not going to be from a certified licensed agency. Yeah. And then you pay your bill and you get a check in the mail that might not cover your whole bill, because it depends on how much long-term care insurance you bought. I would say long-term care insurance is golden. Most people that lessen their benefits because they see the costs going up are probably short-sighted in doing that and may not realize the full value of the policy against what it really costs to get the care. But that's all I'll go into for now, because
Yeah.
we're just trying to stick with our topic here. But if you have long-term care insurance, either call us or send us an email and we'll make sure you get a workshop invitation.
Yeah.
But please let us know that you have a policy so we can do that. So thank you for that. So that's on that. So now we're talking about funding. And so for independent living, your funding is only going to be your personal funds, right? So you're going to get a bill from Knollwood and you pay your bill.
Yeah, easy peasy. Now, as Caroline mentioned, you may see your long-term care insurance policy kick in assisted living if you have one. Rarely, but will you see Medicaid? But if you're going to one of those two places in DC or a place like that, there are few and far between across the nation, but maybe. But most of it is going to be personal funds, right? Yeah.
Or long-term care insurance. We do see more and more people with long-term care policies. But
Yeah.
yeah, mostly personal funds for assisted living.
Yep.
And just to kind of give you an idea on the personal funds, many assisted living places have a charge and it's mainly just for rent, and then they have add-on pricing for care. So you want to, if you are looking at assisted living for somebody, you do really need to know if their monthly fee covers care, because believe it or not, some places don't include the care in the monthly price, but it's add-on. If you are looking at Knollwood, our care is included, so you don't have to look for add-on pricing. Okay.
So
This is about Knollwood
this is,
specific here.
yes, thank you. So when we're comparing independent versus assisted or skilled nursing here at Knollwood, as I mentioned way back at the beginning, the majority of the people who live here are independent. So about 69% of the community is independent living. It's going to be single people, couples, with a whole variety of age ranges, like 65 to 100, even in independent living. Many different size apartment homes, different floor plans, as we talked about before. And as an independent living resident, you would have priority for access to the higher levels of care if and when you need it. Now, assisted living, skilled nursing, much smaller communities, neighborhoods as we call them here, mostly singles. I think we have one couple apartment.
Yeah. Couples usually help each other out, so usually don't need assisted living unless they're both having trouble.
Yeah, it's not often that we see both people needing that level of care at the same time. You may have a variety of small studio apartment sizes, but they're going to be small. Like here, I think ours is like
400 to 500 square feet.
Yeah.
Most of ours are 1-bedroom apartments here for assisted living at Knollwood.
Yes, there is the separation of the living space and the bedroom. We are deficiency free in our survey, which, pat on the back, not to us, but to other people here. And if someone was in assisted living and they do eventually need more care, skilled nursing, they would have priority for whatever bed availability we had.
So person doesn't, they or their, like you or your families don't have to worry if I need rehab or if my care needs to progress, where will I go?
Yeah.
Because we know that you're going to stay here and you're going to, move from either independent to assisted, or maybe you never need assisted. And what if you need nursing care? Or maybe you never need anything other than rehab because you had your appendix out.
Yeah.
But it is right here, one place, one community, which is very nice.
Yeah, and it's that peace of mind. Absolutely. Amenities. So we are lucky enough to have a chapel. Not every community has that. We've got a nice library. It is resident run. So they're in charge of that. Our saltwater pool, which hopefully will open soon. Dang it, COVID.
Yeah.
Outdoor dining, especially in the summer, we've got tons of tables outside, and there's one area of our founder's patio garden area that is particularly shady, and residents will sit out there all day long. They'll read, have their lunch, stay for dinner, maybe have some wine. Right now with COVID, we have the UV sanitation robot, which we talked about on one of our other webinars, the ADF one. If you want to go back and check that out on knollwoodcommunity.org. We also have Abbott rapid tests. So that's really nice. And the employees are being tested regularly. We're very lucky to have that. And of course, 24-hour security and reception. So that's fantastic.
Yeah, 24-hour reception too. That's important.
Yeah.
Especially now that Amazon packages come in all hours of the day and night. Oh my
Yes.
gosh. Yeah, so there's someone to receive packages and get them to your door for you.
Exactly.
Okay.
Just if you ever wanted to kind of check on some of the things that we're talking about here, where do we get our facts from? How do we know about other places? How do we know about, different regulations? So these are some of our sources here. So that's where you can find out about assisted living regulations or Medicaid if you need to know that.
Yeah.
And then, our next webinar is on March 23rd. And that is now on that one, we're going to be comparing assisted living and nursing care. We were scheduled to have one about real estate earlier in March, but we're postponing that until April and we don't have the date yet. So the next webinar will be March 23rd. So you can check your inbox for that. If you wanted to come and look at Knollwood, well, you could do that two ways. You can do it in person. We do take a lot of precautions because of COVID, but we do have in-person tours. You can't bring a whole gang of friends or family members. You can come with one or two people, but we do in-person tours. We have some different protocols that you would follow, or we also do tours via Zoom, and they're catered to what you want to see. You might decide you want to see, the outdoor gardening space where residents plant vegetable gardens. And you might want to see, some 1-bedroom with den apartments. Someone else might not care about seeing where the gardening area is, and they might want to see only larger apartments that are at least 2,000 square feet. Who knows? So, it's up to you what you'd like to see, that we do that. And then I think it's important for the viewers to know that at Knollwood, more than 98% of all the people who live here have already had their second dose vaccine sometime back. And more than 92% of all of our staff have already had their second dose of the vaccine. A few more are getting it on Thursday this week. We also have our art teachers, gym instructors, some of our different vendors, the men that do renovations, but different people here, people that work in the salon, massage therapists, that we've also been vaccinating those folks because they're here on a regular basis. And so we kind of have our own little COVID safety net, and we know we're not 100% safe, but we're much better off than people who haven't been vaccinated. So, and we do wear masks. We're just not wearing masks right now.
And we've both had both of our vaccines.
Well, yes, we have both our vaccines, but
outside of the office,
we're about 6 feet. But we wear masks most of the time.
Yeah.
We just learned the hard way that on the webinar people can't understand us when we're wearing our mask.
Yes.
So I'm just going to check one last time for any last
Let's see if
question.
there's any more questions that popped up. You never know.
Oh, this is
What a great question.
So Diane is asking, are we only for military retirees? Absolutely not. And in fact, we never were only for military retirees, but we were founded by the military. And in the original days, all the people that lived here had some sort of affiliation with the military. They weren't necessarily military themselves, though. But there are some military retirees here. There are government service employees here. There are, and you don't actually have to be retired either to live here.
Yeah.
There are people that live here that
work.
work, and there are civilians that live here.
Mhm.
So our heritage is with the Army, and that was kind of our founding. Actually, Mamie Eisenhower was involved in the founding of Knollwood.
Yep.
So quite some time ago. And originally Knollwood was only for destitute widows.
Yeah.
So it's actually way back only for women. Then they started allowing men. And then,
Slowly.
yes, slowly
Broaden.
changed. But yes, but you do not have to be military to live here.
No, we have our financial eligibility
Mhm.
requirements that we talked about.
And the health and
that's-
cognitive.
Yes.
So you do have to be good physically and cognitively fit.
Mhm.
And we do, expect that you're not going to put yourself in the poorhouse by living here.
Yeah.
So, but other than that, and age, sorry, could be working, but you do have to be 62 or better.
Yep.
You should have said that. So I guess if we don't have any more questions,
Yeah, we'll see. Hopefully, we'll see all of you guys on March 23rd. Looking forward to it.
or you can call us up and take a tour,
Please come in.
or you could let us know if you have long-term care insurance and we can invite you to our workshops. Our workshops are in person. It's not something we can do online because I physically have to flip through your policy. But we do the workshops in a very, very, very large room. There are only 5 tables in it. You would not be seated with anybody who doesn't live with you. And then we either do workshops that might be nice enough to actually provide you with a outdoor meal afterwards. But our current workshops that we're doing are unrelated to long-term care insurance, but we're giving people take-home meals.
Yeah, right now while it's cold and we
Yeah.
can't
Dine
sit outside with you, you get to take your food home. Right. Okay.
So thank you, everybody, and we'll hopefully see you next time.